Good afternoon, DuEwa here, and today is the last day of National Poetry Month, and so I'm still celebrating Poetry Month and thought that for today's read aloud I would share poetry from some favorite anthologies and see what you all think. And this is poetry that is appropriate for kids, teens, and of course adult readers and lovers of poetry. So I want to start off by reading from an anthology that one of my poems was published in years ago, and the title of it is Signifyin HARLEM, Harlem's premier literary journal. And I love this publication because it has so many poets in it who I know. Hi, Pat. It has so many poets in it who I know, who I've seen perform, and who I've also shared stages with. So I'm going to read a few poems from this anthology, starting with my poem titled Listen to the Brothers. And this is a St. Louis poem. Listen to the brothers, shooting that verbal stuff on the verge of summer. They're catching the breeze, the cool breeze with hints of barbecue, honeysuckle, and near burnt out car engines of 73 Monte Carlos that roll down the alleyway. Listen to the brothers shout, argue, pontificate, claim, and disclaim to the things they do and did on this day and yesterday and days before, saying things like, "Oh man," at the tops of their lungs, and other words which tell of lying, sneaking, searching, and hiding, telling of another brother they've been looking for. I saw him. He was right round there on Hodemont Avenue. Their bottles clink like long stem wine glasses, giving toast on New Year's Eve. Those bottled spirits do fly. Complimented by laughter in the air, no care in the world. This is their time, a night of verbal frolicking. Testifying word exchanges in slight code with undercurrents of brotherly love and trust. It's all good, getting lifted all the while. The night air and light of the moon and light of streetlight lampposts curl around their faces and dance upon their gestures, and they'll do the same thing again on the next night. And so that was Listen to the Brothers. And I'm going to read another poem from this anthology. There's so many beautiful poems in this anthology. So I'm going to read a poem by Nicole L. Shields, and this is titled We Be Jammin'. This is a musical poem. We be jammin' 24/7, 365. Everybody be jammin'. Mama, daddy, baby, auntie, blind, Uncle Joe, grandma, and grandpa too. We jam to Stevie, Michael, Barry, and Aretha. We jam so cool that we jam to Kool and the Gang. With Kool-Aid in hand, we be some bad jammin' folks. We jam at picnics. We jam at Aunt Lulu's annual birthday party. We jam at work, church, in supermarkets, on zero below days, waiting at bus stops. Hey, we even jam at funerals. We be jamming. But you know what? We'd really be bad people if we could sashay or our jamming selves to the polls on election day. Then maybe we can jam every night at the White House. Snap to that. Hi, Maria. All right, so that was Signifyin HARLEM Literary Journal, and I don't know if this journal is still available or not, but I've kept it. It's kept in pretty good condition, and this was published, 15 or more years ago, so it's a real classic for me. I try to save it. All right. Now I'm going to go to Poetry Inc., the 10th Anniversary Anthology. And this was published out of Philadelphia. And Pat, you're an esteemed Philadelphia poet. You may have been familiar with this. I believe Robin, the owner of Robin's Bookstore, was instrumental in publishing this work. And there's a poem here that I thought would be really nice for youth. And it's by the notable poet, school founder and publisher of Third World Press, Haki Madhubuti, and it's titled Art. Art is a prodigious and primary energy force. Children's active participation in music, dance, painting, poetry, film, photography, and the indigenous craft of their people is what makes them whole, significantly human, secure in their own skin, culture, and abilities, thus generating in them unlimited possibilities. Art is a fundamental instruction and food for people's soul as they translate the many languages and acts of becoming, often telling them in no uncertain terms that all humans are not pure or perfect. However, the children of all cultures inherit their creator's capacity to originate from the bone of their imagination. The closest manifestations of purity, perfection, and beauty, art at its best, encourages us to walk on water, dance on top of trees, and skip from star to star without being able to swim, keep a beat, or fly. A child's on-fire imagination is the one universal prerequisite for becoming an artist. Magnify your children's mind with art. Jumpstart their questions with art. Introduce your children to the cultures of the world through art. Energize their young feet, spirits, and souls with art. Infuse the values important to civil culture via art. Keep them curious, political, and creative with art. Speak and define the universal language of beauty with art. Learn to appreciate peace with art. Approach the cultures of others through their art. Introduce the spiritual paths of other people through their art. Keep young people in school, off drugs, and out of prison with art. Keep their young minds running, jumping, and excited with art. Keep their young minds running, jumping, and excited with art. Examine the nurturing moments of love, peace, and connecting differences in art. Art allows and encourages the love of self and others, the best artists. Art is elemental to intelligent intelligence, working democracy, freedom, equality, and justice. Art, if used wisely and widely, early and often, is an answer and a question. It is the cultural lake that the indigenous rivers of dance, music, local images, and voices flow. Art is the waterfall of life, reflecting the untimely and unique soul of a people. Art is the drumbeat of good and great hearts forever seeking peace and a grand future for all enlightened peoples. For these are the people the world over who lovingly proclaim, give the artist some kind words, financial support, yeses from your heart, knowing intuitively that there will be creative reciprocity in all that they give us. Why? Because fundamentally, art inspires, informs, directs, generates hope, and challenges the receiver to respond. And finally, and this is consequential, the quality of the art determines the quality of the responses. Whew, that poem is deep. Haki Madhubuti, I gotta give him snaps because he is one of the legendary elders in poetry and also education and publishing. So I salute him. Okay, so now we're going to move through some other poems. And Sister Queen, Poet Queen Pat McLean Smith is here. And Pat, I always, you know, your poem, my students love your poem. And I've been sharing your poem for years in middle school, high school, college, teaching. And everybody loves your poem. And so that's why I always try to share it, because it brings the writing, the skill of great writing, and also teaching the literary elements, rhythm, rhyme, repetition. It brings culture. It brings history, because students can look up all these wonderful jazz artists and figure out who they are. And it certainly brings music, because we're bringing in the jazz influence. And hey, you can even play hip hop to this and it'll be just as great. So I'm going to share Pat's beautiful poem, Just Jazz. And this is from the anthology Check the Rhyme, an anthology of female poets and Emcees. And I continue to use this anthology when teaching and doing workshops. This features 50 wonderful women writers and poets from across the globe, and certainly many, many, many award-winning poets from the U.S. Just Jazz. You ever ride? You ever ride on a train for miles until you got dizzy? Got so dizzy it felt like you could fly. Fly like a bird, man. Fly so high and so close to heaven you felt godly, like you was the monk of melody, the minister of music, serenading sermons of soul into some righteous rhythms. You ever hear, then listen to the lyrical libations of Louis. You ever shout salvation while Satchmo blows into your being, narrating notes of rhapsodies into rhythms of royalty, making you feel as if you were a king, a queen, the Count of Basie, the Duke of Ellington, or just some beautiful lady of the day. You ever stomp your feet to the soulful sounds of Sister Shara, Sister Ella, as they filled your sorry soul with joy? Or snap your fingers to the music of Brother Tyner, you know, the original, the real McCoy. You ever jump on a jazz note and ride the rhythm? You ever jump on a jazz note and just ride the rhythm? Ride so far and fast you felt compelled to never come back. You ever slip inside of a sax, hover under a horn, peel off a piano, or float on a flute? Until you felt like a drum beating into the soul of the universe. You ever just jazz, man? You ever jazz? You ever just jazz? I just love this poem. Thank you so much, Pat. Your words are beautiful. Your words are infinite. And as long as I can read this poem, I will continue to share it. I just want you to know, and that's why I wanted to get you on that curriculum, a video with you, but maybe sometime in the future I'll be able to have you on with that. But I hope you all enjoyed that poem, and there's so many more in this book. I won't read any more from this book, but Pat's poem is certainly, for me, one of the highlights of this anthology. And so I won't keep you all too long today, but I have another poet's work that I really want to read. And this is a poet who I met several years ago, and she is a Midwest St. Louis poet. Maria, I don't know if you're still there, but I want to pay homage to you with reading your poem, Life of I Almighty. And Maria's poem is from an anthology that was published a few years ago and edited by the first poet laureate in St. Louis, Missouri, Dr. Michael Castro. And I'm also in this anthology. The poem I have in this book is very long, so I'm not going to read it, but I really thought I would share Maria's. And as you can see here, this is the poem, and this is Maria's beautiful photo here. And Maria and I have done several events together, and she's a beautiful poet and always has some very deep things to say and share with us. Life of I Almighty, abbreviated, summarized, minimized, miniaturized, nano-digitized, bombarded eyes, existence, streamed, incomplete words, discarded language, no, what I mean, beep, I am here at your service. I know better, ask me, and ye shall receive. Obey me. Honor me, the I monopoly. Do not let your eyes deceive you. Do not let your mind sway from me. Do not look outside beyond me. Do not allow your senses to manipulate you. The weather outside, the roads traveled, directions you must take, birds singing, nascent buds, leaves falling, powdery flakes do not exist unless I acknowledge them. See me, watch me, the school bus will spot you walking on the curb. Listen to me, hear me. The world, non-entrants, will be aware of you. Stop to smell the flowers. Such a cliche, so passé. Why bother? Don't waste your time. I can tell you of their scent. Only I matter, I know better. Ask me, and ye shall receive. And that was Life of I Almighty by, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name properly, Maria T. Balog. And this is Crossing the Divide. If you want information on this anthology, you can find this at my website, DuEwaWorld.com. Check the Rhyme and Poetry Inc., the previous anthologies I read. You can also find information on these at my website, DuEwaWorld.com. Okay, so lastly, I'm going to read from the Vintage Book of African American Poetry. Classic Anthology, 200 Years of Vision, Struggle, Power, Beauty, and Triumph from 50 Outstanding Poets. As you can see, this is my copy, quite worn. As an educator, I've been using it for years. As a book lover and poetry lover, I've been reading it for years. And I'm going to share a few poems from Langston Hughes before I close out. Langston Hughes, the poet from Harlem, who we love and always continue to remember his great works. And so this first poem I'm going to read is titled Harlem Night Song. Thank you, you're welcome. Harlem Night Song, come, let us roam the night together, singing I love you. Across the Harlem rooftops, moon is shining, night sky is blue, stars are great drops of golden dew. Down the street, a band is playing, I love you. Come, let us roam this night together, singing. That's a short and sweet poem. And Langston Hughes had many of those short, sweet poems, but you can really get the rhythm and see the whole scene in Harlem and get a feel for the people and what the vibe was. Okay, so two more poems by Langston. Mother to Son. Oh, this is a classic poem. Classic, classic. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time I's been a-climbing, and reaching landings, and turning corners, and sometimes going in the dark, where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on the steps 'cause you find it's kinda hard. Don't you fall now, for I still going, honey, I still climbing, and life for me ain't been no crystal stair. I often feel that that is such a theme. It's something that we go back to, this Langston Hughes poem, Mother to Son. You know, it indicates the struggle of one mother, but also the struggle of people, many people, and what they went through, just trying to get through life, survival. And Langston, you know, they often said he was the people's poet because he really could communicate what people were going through of the time and do it so eloquently in his poetry. And so lastly, I'm going to share another very short poem of Langston's titled Passing Love. Because you are to me a song, I must not sing you over long. Because you are to me a prayer, I cannot say you everywhere. Because you are to me a rose, you will not stay when summer goes. That poem is so sweet, short, and beautiful, and I really enjoy it. Okay, well, I will not keep you all long today. I recorded probably about an hour of read aloud yesterday. So today I said I'm going to keep it short and sweet. And feel free to look up any of these works and these poems because they're all meaningful and have something to share and teach us. Thank you so much for joining me, and feel free to visit my websites, DuEwaWorld.com or Lit, Noir, N-O-I-R-E, publishing.co for more information and to get a glimpse of some of my books. Thank you, be well, and be safe.